Okay, good morning, Mom. Good morning, classmates. So, my report is all about the national mandate or the Republic Act 10121. So, what is Republic Act 10121? So, it is a law that requires the country's government and its citizens to be prepared for disasters. So, this law is very important because as a Filipino citizens, it reminds us that we should be ready or we should be prepared for any disasters that is coming. So, why is RA 10121 is important? So, because the Filipinos or the Philippines is one of the most at risk countries in the world, fifth in disaster risk with 26.70% disaster risk as of year 2016. So, why is the Philippines at risk in terms of geography, climate, human-induced calamities? So, the Philippines is fifth most at risk of disasters as of year 2016. So, WRI in the year 2016 ranks 173 countries according to how exposed and vulnerable they are to natural hazards, including earthquake, floods, and storms. So, among those 173 countries, according to WRI on year 2016, Philippines is the fifth most at risk or most vulnerable countries of disasters or any tragedies as of 2016. So, factors that make people more vulnerable to disasters include poverty. So, we all know that Filipino peoples are prone or at stake in terms of poverty because Filipino people have lack of education, or mostly Filipinos are do not have work. So we are prone to poverty. Slum housing, limited access to medical services, especially for those poor families or poor people. So limited lang ang ilang access, dili din sila maka easy dali-dali og access sa mga hospitals because tungod kay pobre sila, then dili kayo sila ma-accommodate. And clean water, corruption, yeah, we all know here in the Philippines that corruption is a common issues here in our country, and weak law enforcement. So here, as you observe in the World Risk Index, so Philippines range from high to very high. So as you observe here in the red color, 10.40 to 36.72%. So it is very high. So Philippine range from high to very high. So ang Philippines is vulnerable din siya sa mga disasters or any tragedies. So why was RA 10121 implemented? So nganong gi-implement man ni siya nga law? So first is to prevent the loss of lives during disasters, natural or man-made. So para mapakgang or mapugngan ang makalas nga mga kinabuhi, especially kung naay mga disasters or mga tragedies nga moabot, to reduce the loss of structures. So para ma-minimize sad ang mawala nga mga structures or sa loss sa mga structures, especially sa mga buildings, especially kung may earthquake. So dali ra gyud kayo matumpag ang mga buildings. So RA 10121 gi-implement ni siya kay para makatabang sa ato ang to reduce the loss of structures. So third is to prepare the people for the upcoming typhoons, earthquake, landslides. So RA 10121 is helping us to be aware and any upcoming tragedies or disasters. So what government sector is in charge of NDRRMC? So as you notice here, the chairperson secretary or the Department of National Defense, then vice president, or the so on and so forth. So di na kayo nako i-discuss kani siya nga slide kaya di kaayo maklaro. So NDRRMC is empowered to do the following functions. So first function is it develop vertical and horizontal coordination mechanisms, formulates a national institutional capability building program, and it formulate a national agenda, research and technology development on DRRM, formulate and implement a framework for CCA and DRRM, constitute a technical management group. Task OCD to conduct periodic assessment and performance monitoring of the member agencies, coordinate the implementation of the country's obligation with disaster management treaties. So, what are the precautions the NDRRMC take to reduce casualties? So, unsa man ang ginabuhat sa NDRRMC? So, they have four-part system. First is disaster preparedness. Second is disaster mitigation and prevention. Third is disaster response, and last is disaster rehabilitation and recovery. So ang NDRRMC is very important yun kay makatabang sila ni nga agency or sila ni nga council ang mutabang sa mga tao, especially if na ay mga tragedies or casualties. So here are the following role of LGUs. First is under Republic Act 10121, there shall be a DRRM council for each region. So, require na siya nga kada region na adjud siya DRRM council. LGUs from the provincial to the barangay level. So, gikan sa provincial hangtod sa mga barangays, kinahanglan gid siya, and also mandated to form and operate DRRM council. So each of these offices must come up with a local disaster risk reduction and management plan covering aspects of disaster preparedness, response, prevention and mitigation, and rehabilitation and recovery. So, and role of LGU also is they are the chief DRRM officer. So, regional DRRM council is NDRRMC's regional arm, maintains an operating facility on a 24-hour basis known as the Regional Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Operations Center. So, regional DRRM council, depending on the scope or size of a disaster, the implementing rules and regulations of the new DRRM law defines when the different national and local disaster risk reduction and management councils will be activated. Barangay Development Council or the BDC, if usa lang ka barangay ang maapektuhan or na mga casualties in terms of mga earthquakes or mga panghitabo, is ang BDC lang ang manage ana nila. But if duha or sobra pa sa duha, moabot 2 to 3 or 2 or more barangays are affected, so ang manage ana is ang City Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or the CMDRRMC. So scope. So if duha or more cities ang apektado sa mga calamities, so ang manage ana ila is Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. So if duha or more provinces are affected, so kung province na, Regional Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. But if 2 or more regions, so kung region na ang affected sa mga calamities or na mga casualties, so ang National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council na ang manage sa kaninga mga affected regions. So, depending on the scope or size of a disaster, the implementing rules and regulations of the new DRM law defines when the different national and local disaster risk reduction and management councils will be activated. So, as what I have mentioned earlier, if usa lang ka barangay ang affected, so BDC lang ang manage nila or ang Barangay Development Council. But if 2 or more barangays, if duha or sobra pa sa duha nga mga barangays ang affected sa mga calamities or sa mga tragedies, ang City or ang Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council ang manage sa ilaha. Then, to sum up my report, RA 10121 teaches us to be prepared in every disaster that may come our way. So, kani siya nga law, it helps us citizens or Filipino citizens to be ready, to be aware, to be prepared, or to be active in every day because we don't know when tragedy will come. So, it's important for us to be prepared. So, I hope that you learned something from my report, and thank you for listening, and God bless us.